getting drunk.
Hello, Rozz.
Hello, Jackie Sue.
Welcome back to another episode of
We forgive you.
a show all about self-care through celebrity.
Another week.
Another day, another dollar, another check I have to get cashed in person at the bank.
I know, it's so crazy that they make you do that. It's just because
my bank doesn't have an app.
Well, it's because like big checks, so it's like they're too
it's
large
like
to
the
put
thing.
in the machine.
No, the real issue is that I get paid only in lottery winner checks, and so I like a clearinghouse.
Oh,
Publishers Clearinghouse.
Yeah.
Style checks. That's how I get all of my checks.
And you can't use an app.
Because I can't get far enough away from it in my apartment to capture the whole thing in a little scanner.
I know, it's nuts.
So I lied at the beginning when I said my bank doesn't have an app. We do. I just don't have a large enough apartment to get away from these giant checks to capture the whole thing.
Yeah, it's crazy that they've like insisted on giving you guys
so
those
weird.
big checks.
It's crazy. It's like they.
And Ed McMahon still shows up.
It's like it really does make it. You know when you're getting paid though. You know,
Yeah,
like sometimes you're like, ooh, I have to check. Make sure I got paid. I never have to check.
Well,
because I get the check.
Well,
you know.
Yeah, but it's also just like blows my mind that they won't give anyone a raise, but they insist on like. Oh my God,
I know. It's like, how much does this cost? Ed McMahon's fee must be more than my salary.
The check, and they always have a camera crew to like put it on the gram because
know.
they're really concerned about.
Follow payday checks on Instagram, and I don't know what that'll be. But check it out.
Check it out. Well, I'm glad that you're getting that sorted. I'm glad we're here together, sipping some rosé, eating remnants of what was a goat cheese bruschetta.
Oh, such a good spread. We already pressed that press, so
we're pressing on through.
I might actually have a little last splash.
We can make more. We both
That's
have,
okay.
Yeah, we both have nights ahead of us. My stepson Sam is here, and he was wanting some coffee before he goes out with his friends.
Oh, that does sound like he's your stepson.
Yeah, that's another story. But
so, I am still looking out for advice on microdosing from anyone out in the community. As I seek new forms of self-care.
Yeah.
But I talked really heavily about that last week. So, Rozz, what are you doing?
Well, I quit my job.
What?
Well, I put my 2 weeks in, which is, I think, a form of self-care of, like, when something is no longer making you happy or just, like, I'm just ready to move on to the next thing. And I feel like it'll help me restructure the types of jobs I'm hearing back from. And I've been, honestly, like in the past 2 weeks, it's like I've been hearing back from a lot of places. So the places that I'm applying to are more flexible. They're close to where I live. Some of them are part-time, which allows for other things. Yeah, I've been focusing a lot of like my personal stuff, and I'm excited to the means like, oh, cool, I can actually look for a yoga studio, like actually go try out. Where I'm like, usually if I have time to work out, I'm like, I'm just going to go to the gym. I know
right. Because you have such a long commute every day.
Yeah, well, it ends up being 2 hours.
That's insane.
And for something that I don't really love.
And this sort of reached like the end of its
it's a natural end. It's totally that. So that has been awesome. And I don't know when this exactly, but Sam and I are gearing up for a trip to Spain. So that's been how I'm practicing self-care. Got my travel books.
When is the trip?
The last week in June.
Ooh.
So there's a possibility this episode might come out
right in time.
If we think about
it. Yeah.
It might actually happen that week, that Friday. So I have a game.
Ooh.
So we decided that we kind of want to start repeating games in like a good way, as like, oh, it's a thing we do. So we're going to go back and play bingo.
I'm so excited. I've never been on this end of the game.
I know you haven't.
Of the bingo game.
This will be fun. I like how I'm just telling you the experience that you were going to have. But
that's the only way I know.
It's very thematic in that all of I'm not going to say
what all these people have in common.
Right. Because I want to know if people
catch it. Okay.
So why don't you start by reading? We're gonna post this on our gram, but again.
Okay. Why though? Here for the wrong reasons. They're canceled. Brunch. Reaching. Needs new friends. Extra. Lost. Here for the right reasons. Does that say 10C they're hot?
IDC they hot.
Oh, IDC they hot. Okay.
That means I don't care. They're hot. Like, they can do no wrong.
I read it as 10-cent hottie.
Ooh, it sounds like a diss, or like it's a 10-cent hottie. Like, they're cheap.
Yeah, but good looking. Tattooed. Gross. Shiny. Velvet Elvis. Too pretty to care. Thought. Doing it for the gram. Sensual. Happy and sad. And questionable.
Okay, so are you ready? Do you have your pen?
I need a pen. I am ready.
All right. Vanessa Hudgens.
Why though?
Anna Sophia Robb. You might remember her from Bridge to Terabithia.
Or
Carrie.
No, she was also in a movie with Because of Winn-Dixie.
Oh, because of Winn-Dixie.
Reaching.
Ooh. Haley Steinfeld.
Needs new friends.
That's really good. Nick Jonas. Oh, yeah, Nick Jonas.
Questionable.
Mm-hmm. Kourtney Kardashian.
Doing it for the gram.
Ooh. Haley Baldwin.
Here for the wrong reasons.
Crazy is that that's exactly who I thought. Kendall Jenner. I'm curious if anyone's picked up the commonalities between these
Too
people.
pretty to care.
Ooh. How many do you have left? Like, what?
Well, I have one row that's 3 in a row.
Oh.
I think that we don't have enough rows. Doesn't matter. I have to get 4 in a row or 5 in a row.
I didn't do it. I was like,
I'm having a good time.
yeah. So we called it the problem already. Selena Gomez. Did I already say her?
No, you didn't. But happy and sad.
Oh, that's good. Kylie Jenner.
Honestly, here for the right reasons.
Oh, that's nice. Justin Bieber.
Ooh, gross.
Cody Simpson.
I know who he is, but I still feel like there should be a who. Shiny.
Ooh. Chris Pratt.
Ugh. They're canceled. I'm never gonna get bingo. I'm gonna
I
get
know.
every
I
single
was
thing
like,
crossed out.
and I didn't. I even.
I'm not
even
going for the win. I'm just like, I'm going with my
Let's see,
truth,
'cause-
not with my
because
strategy.
Ooh, now I'm getting to Austin Butler. Vanessa Hudgens' boyfriend.
Oh, I don't know anything about him. But he's probably good looking. I don't care. He's hot. Is he good looking?
He's hot. Scooter Braun.
Oh, he is extra of what I have left.
Right, because we're.
I'm getting that. I've almost marked off someone for everything, but I haven't gotten anything in a row.
All right. This is getting. I didn't expect it to go on this long, so we're really getting into athletes, which I don't know if you will know any of them. So, let's see. These people, I will say Kevin Durant.
Oh,
Which you probably know who that is.
Yeah, I know who he is. Does he have any tattoos? Probably. I don't think he's a Velvet Elvis. I doubt he cares about brunch. I don't know. Maybe he does. Lost. No, wait. What team does he play for?
The Golden State Warriors.
Oh, yeah. Let me know if he has tattoos.
I'll check.
For any of you all out there listening, I don't know what
I don't think he does.
Kevin Durant's arms
look
look
like. I
like.
really don't think so.
What if I
He's
said
29. He looks so much older to me. Those aren't him in the photo. I don't think he has tattoos.
Well, then he is sensual.
Patty Millette.
Whom?
Justin Bieber's mom.
Oh, Lost. Oh, bingo.
Bingo. So I got you. Did you get a 4-way or a 5-way?
I had a 5-way.
Wow. Okay. So tell me.
Needs new friends.
That was Haley Steinfeld.
Which is true. Extra. Scooter Braun. Lost. Beep's mom. Here for the right reasons, Kylie. And I don't care they're hot, Austin Butler.
Wow. What a
real ragtag troop.
So, I think you obviously know what the
I know what they did.
For those of you listening at home, I'm curious if anyone got this, so please comment in the comments. These celebrities are all people who have attended Hillsong Church.
So, Hillsong Church. Oh. Woo! Before we get into that, it's time to...
Press.
That press. Woo! Oh, yeah.
We need a theme song for Press That Press.
We do. So, friend of the pod and creator of our theme song, V. Johnson, let me know that he recently bought a French press, and he's been saying in his head every time he makes a French press that press, which is part of the reason why I wanted to have a second pot of coffee, honestly, just so we could do it. Right. It does make it more fun, but it might increase your caffeine intake, so be careful.
Yeah, it might. Honestly, I haven't really had that much caffeine because I was, if you listen to the episode we recorded at the same time, I've been not unintentionally intermittent fasting.
Which is when your boyfriend says, we got to go. We don't have time for you to eat.
Yeah. And then comes in here while we're recording and takes half of a baguette and leaves. So. Well,
it's intermittent. It's not full on.
That's true.
So all of those celebs go to Hillsong Church, which is started in Australia, but is basically now like a global mega church that is, some people refer to as Pentecostal, but it's non-denominational.
Non-denominational thing,
but it like sprang out of other practices. Hillsong is probably most famous for their music. So they
and like the young hot pastor, like the young hot
right, but
pastors.
So like in the Christian world, they're probably like the most prolific producers of new contemporary Christian music. And so they're like used, and like Hillsong's music is used across denominations. So like even like some Catholic churches will play songs of theirs.
Because it's contemporary Christian music that's like done well.
Right. Like it's expensive. Honestly, like they're putting a lot of production into it.
When you have like Scooter Braun, you know what I mean? Like in the people that he brings. I don't think he regularly goes, but he's obviously going because of
the person we're going to talk about today, which is Justin Bieber. So I think I'm coming today to talk about Justin Bieber because I've been having, I think, a lot of like frustrations and not anger, but just like at work and just like a little bit in life, but like just like frustrated with my job basically.
Right.
And I've been like thinking, I had a moment like earlier this week where I just had like an aggressive tone in a meeting.
Oh.
And not really even aggressive, just like a little bit like.
Did you recognize it as you were doing it, or was it brought to your attention?
Both. Anyway, so I have been thinking about basically like just like what we allow for in culture versus what we don't. And like when it comes to tone, it's like, how are you allowed to express yourself?
Right.
And so I've been thinking about like, how could I do a better job of managing my emotions so that they don't come forward in a way that like I'm not fully intending them to.
Right.
But that made me think about Justin Bieber because he is someone who has sort of like erratic behavior because he doesn't know or doesn't have to manage anything about his life.
Right.
And like hasn't ever had to since he became famous as like a 14-year-old. So it's like a very stark contrast of like, oh, like someone didn't like my tone in a meeting and I need to like confront that.
Right. It has very real consequences.
Right.
You
like
know?
it is something you have to like apologize for or explain, or like dig into of like, oh, what's actually going on here? Like, is everything okay? Are you okay in your job? Whatever. Which is like the real world version of something that someone like Justin Bieber doesn't have to confront.
Well, he can do these things and it's never like his livelihood. Like, I guess, and sometimes it never seems like his livelihood is on the line.
Right.
Like, you could have like used the tone and people were like, oh, well, actually, you know, really gone into it. And you're like, wow, I didn't realize that's how I was behaving. And then you're put on like some sort of probation. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it's...
So, I wanted to dig into the Biebs. I think to like
Are you a Belieber?
understand it, I am a listener.
Okay.
So,
Well,
I would-
listener, I think everyone who's walking the planet is a listener.
right, I'm like an
like
active listener. So
Okay.
I will like
Not a
seek
fan, but
out
you seek out his
his
music.
music. So like I will put Sorry
Good for-
on
yeah.
in a car.
yeah. Sorry, I'm a Belieber.
Friend of the pod and former co-host Sarah Garrison and I have like a very painful to look at choreographed dance to What Do You Mean, which mostly just involves like throwing up your arms like in a shrug
Oh, that's really sweet.
that we made up on
Were you in
a
a car?
stage.
Oh.
No, in Martha's Vineyard, we were very embarrassingly at the back of the stage, just like basically catwalking back and forth, doing this like choreography and circling each other. I mean, beautiful but horrific.
It's
like,
beautiful.
also we didn't know anyone, so it was like,
Why were you on
who
a
cares?
stage?
Like, it was just like one of those clubs that has like an elevated,
Oh, an elevated, yeah.
surface, and we were like in the back of that stage.
Yeah, I just like being like, we were in the back of the stage, like what was happening?
Yeah, no, it was just a club.
Okay.
But there was just a lot of space there for performing,
Obviously.
which is, you have to find your space.
Right. Well, what's funny is that when you said we were just dancing with our hands, I assumed you were just in a car, because you were like, it's a really just one move with the
No,
hands.
it's one of those things where I learned how like what dance should be thanks to like, you know, Britney Spears,
Right.
and so dancing is mostly moving your
Upper
arms.
body.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's like
But-
you only drop down like for big moments.
Yeah, but like a lot of Britney is creating shapes with your body.
That's true.
You know, so did you pop out a leg to like do a like? Britney's dancing is a workout. Like that's what it is. Like
Yeah.
it's a very beautifully choreographed workout class. We're like, whoa, I feel so taut after this.
But like it doesn't necessarily teach you that like your hip should be involved in
Right.
most
There's
parts of what you're
nothing-
doing.
There's nothing about Britney's dancing that is hippie.
Their stances.
Yeah. It's athletic. Her dancing is athletic.
Yeah. So that's how I learned how to dance. And so I often don't think with my legs. Also, I walk like a baby giraffe. So still
Aw.
just stumbling because,
It's because Jackson started this thing when he moved to New York that he only wears heels.
yeah. I'm sorry, but if women have to do it, so do I.
Yeah, always.
And-
That's why he can't ever really find his balance, and so his hands, arms are always like
Woo!
moving.
Yeah. Which helps with the armography, but not with my ankles sprained
No.
at least once a month. So Justin Bieber, fan of the music, loved Boyfriend. I love a dumb
Ooh.
spoken word rap.
Yeah.
was really into Where Have You Been?
Oh yeah.
Is it Where Have You Been?
Where have you?
No, that's Rihanna.
No, that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, the one with like the dolphin noise. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it's not Where Have You Been.
Where are you now that I need
Where are
you?
you now?
Where are you now?
There we go. Where are you now? Like that. Love that song.
Yeah, you do.
Anyway, so fan, but like not into him as a person.
Okay.
Never really happened. I think when I was in college is when like Baby came out. And so he was like,
you were not in college when Baby came out.
Yeah, no, I was.
Really?
We were. I'm almost positive. Or my friend was still just listening to it. I just picture my friend Rachel listening to Baby at her second year apartment in college. She had like a...
Maybe it did. Maybe it did come out when we were in college. Sorry. I just think it came out. I feel like I was close to high school. Anyways, it's regardless of the point.
Well, the point is that like when he arrived on the scene, he was very young.
Yes.
And so I was like not intrigued by him. And he didn't get to like a mature look until the Believe album, where he like didn't look like a...
Oh, yeah.
He was
he
like
still looks young.
I mean, he still looks young, but he wasn't like prepubescent.
Right. He hit puberty.
So I've honestly probably, it's one of those things where I've probably been a bigger fan than I've ever admitted. Like I've had his music on like multiple playlists, like,
right.
So it's, and like some things have been like my genuine like
Your
jam at the time.
His genuine jam, baby, all organic.
Woo! But his like lashing out sort of behavior has always frustrated me, and I think it's because one, it just like reminds me of like that kid who interrupted like your math class,
Who,
like a class clown type.
It would say
thing.
like disruptive on
Right.
his report card.
Yeah, but it would be like you would be like, oh, I'm learning a lot right now, and then they would like throw something or like scream or just like start roughhousing. Just something, and I was just,
like make a
you
fart
know,
noise.
yeah, I was just like a good little boy and was very frustrated by boys like that, which is maybe a little bit on me, but I don't care.
You were ahead of your
Don't
time.
really care. And so there's like that part of him, but it's also like there's been like, it's not just like one instance. It's like okay, oh okay, oh really, okay. It's like, how many times can someone behave like a 13-year-old brat and we just like say, you know what, cool with it?
So my question, like right off the bat, I know you're still going into it, is that a lot of these, I understand like what I'm about to say is problematic, that I'm like, he was a teenager, and not that I think teenagers should have a carte blanche, because like you think of like Trayvon Martin like having Skittles and like being shot, and it's like those kids, like often like black youth, aren't given a chance to like make any mistakes.
Right.
But I will say like Justin was young and was like in weird circumstances, so I just wonder if he's like trying to grow.
So what I sort of, who I always think about in these situations is Lindsay Lohan.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's like part of why I really get mad at like bad boys. Like just me, because like Lindsay Lohan like had multiple instances of like misbehaving or like basically like getting a great opportunity and like squandering it a little bit. And she lost her entire career. I mean, before Oprah, like think about like that for her movie with Jane Fonda, Georgia Rule, when the head of that production company like penned an open letter to her because she like took off time for exhaustion, or was like basically like sent to a rehabilitative center, and like was eviscerated by that man.
Yeah.
And it's like Justin Bieber, meanwhile, like has in Oslo, like has someone spill water on his stage or like thinks that there's water on the stage, and he just says, I'm not doing this anymore, and leaves the stage, and the show's over. And it's like someone like Lindsay Lohan, like her behavior is happening like off screen, and also like we can't fully understand it or judge it, but like it's still destroying her career. And Justin Bieber is like front page and like sort of like just like right in front of you, like behaving horribly, and we just keep giving him more chances.
Right. But don't you think we also have given Lindsay Lohan a lot of...
See, that's the thing that it's like we say that we do, I think, but we don't actually offer any forgiveness as a culture. We like, it's like we like sit and like watch it as a spectacle instead of forgiving it, if that makes sense.
Right.
So,
but my question is the reason I feel like I see it a little different, and I'm sure like when I listen back, I'm like, oh my God, why are you defending Justin Bieber so much? I really am not. It's just that her skill, casting her in Georgia role versus casting like another actress, doesn't really change the movie. Like, sadly, like I just don't think it does. I'm sure there are instances of films where obviously the casting like totally changed, made or destroyed a film.
Yeah.
But I feel like Justin Bieber is a little harder to replace. You know, and is that like a bad metric? Am I off base in saying that? Like, I'm not downplaying her talent, but it's like,
I think you are, and I think that all of us do this.
Yeah.
Because it's harder to separate a like singer or a songwriter performer from their art than it is to separate an actor from theirs, because they're playing a character
written by someone else, and they feel
or even if it's written by them, it's like, oh, but they could have, like, it's like when you watch a Woody Allen movie, just thinking of someone who always played himself in his own movies,
right? But he
until he reached it, but even like he reached an age where like he's like, oh, I can't be 100 years old, 100
like
playing
Dumbledore?
like the male lead in this, so I'm gonna cast someone else to play like me. But like there's still like a replaceability there. It's like even when you're writing yourself, you can still have someone else do it, whereas like you like Cher, like you can't like get another Cher to just like pop up and be Cher. But that doesn't mean that like someone couldn't fill the shoes of Justin Bieber in the pop music landscape.
That's true.
So something that I thought was fascinating, along that vein, in John Caramonica's review of Shawn Mendes's most recent album, Shawn Mendes.
We've got a Stitcher over here.
We got a Stitcher right here, present. He talks about how like anonymous the album sounds, and he's like, it could be this or
like,
this person,
no
because like
connection.
he's working for the first time with like all of these huge songwriters. So he's working with like Ed Sheeran and Ryan Tedder and Teddy Geiger, who I guess he's also worked with in the past. So that one's like a little bit of an overlap. And Julia Michaels, like huge pop songwriters. And so he talks a little bit about like, you know, just because like the biggest stars are off an album cycle, so like Taylor Swift isn't releasing an album right now, or
so they're all working with Shawn
Beyonce's
Mendes.
not. It's like, oh well, these people are still working. Like the top tier talent is still out here producing music, and like just because the top tier like performer is unavailable for the song, like just because you can't get Rihanna doesn't mean the song's not getting released. You just get like BB Rexa. And
I understand that, but I think if BB Rexa releases a track that Rihanna didn't take because she's not on that thing, it's not as successful.
I mean, that was like a very extreme example,
but no, I totally get your point, is that like there is another team behind it.
I think it's like if you look at like Justin's been around probably long enough that he has like a cult of personality that's harder to replace, which I think that is
part of it. And I think Lindsay has also made choices that like she doesn't, I just don't know if she wants even this. Like that's the thing, is where I feel like Justin does. I
So
I totally understand your point, but I don't know why I'm defending Justin. I don't know if I feel like he wants this more than Lindsay, because like Lindsay seems to just want to be able to do whatever she wants, which is like, and she is.
I don't like. I can't speak to that their volition and all of it.
Yeah.
But I think I brought Lindsay up as an example because I do think we gave her less forgiveness than we give other people. I honestly like. Sorry to do this again, but like Britney Spears is someone who like we as a culture like have forgiven, quote unquote, for like
For
her
what?
breakdown.
Oh.
But it still is like tossed around as like a joke and is like still part of her public
Thing.
like perception in a way that like I just feel like I look at Sean Penn and like he has like a footnote in his story where he tied Madonna to a chair and like abused her and maybe like left her tied up, whatever.
Right, allegedly.
Like
we say that because it's like you can get sued for saying that.
Sean Penn allegedly is a horrible person, and
well, we could say he is a
still
horrible
like
person that allegedly is very violent
towards multiple women, certainly verbally abusive.
Yeah.
Like, that part's not in dispute. If it is, he's allegedly definitely verbally abusive.
Right.
And we instead like still let him make documentaries about like the South Sudan and like
Haiti.
applaud him and like give him Academy Awards, and it doesn't get mentioned. And like maybe I'm just saying like I feel like
no, I definitely think
there's,
that
like,
women there's a gendered thing to it too. I think with Justin, what I keep hitting up against is that he was so young in all of this. And I don't mean to take it away from your point because I too am curious to go down this road with you. But that's something that I brush up against. I'm brushing up against that I don't know how much of volition he had to get to this point, right?
Yeah. So I think let me pivot a little bit and see if it gets us to a clearer place. So my two biggest sort of litanies, if I were to just pick two moments about Justin Bieber that I find like truly reprehensible, are one, when he abandoned his pet monkey in Berlin, which is just like such a like you already have a pet that shouldn't be a pet. Like monkeys are not domesticated animals. They don't exist to like be funny like for you, and then like to also like already take something that shouldn't be a pet and be in captivity, and certainly not like in captivity so you can walk around it on your arm like you're fucking Rozz and Friends, and then to just abandon it and be like, oh well, which is what happened until like there was a press firestorm around it. Anyway, that just like
what happened? They just didn't have the correct paperwork, and so he's like, oh, it's fine, I'll just leave it. Like it was like
they had like
4-ounce
an issue
bottle
with
of lotion.
Like
That's
oh
fine.
I'll buy another Camelback like when I get through. Sorry, I left water in it. We can just throw it away. Anyway, that's
even then I'd pound the water.
Right, exactly. So that obviously I find troubling. And then in 2013, when he was in that restaurant and he just like pisses in the mop bucket.
Why did he like? What was I just?
And is like at the same time says like fuck Bill Clinton. I mean, why did he do it? Because he was on drugs.
Drugs, right?
Like, but that just like there's something about that behavior of just like that like level of like of not caring at all about the person who has to clean up after you. It's like, I don't care about animals. I don't care about other people. Like, I just deserve to act however I want, and people can clean up after me.
Because they will.
Right, because they always have.
Right.
You literally pay people to clean up after you. Anyway, but it's like, I just find those two instances speak so loudly to me about like his character. Mm-hmm. And sure, like we both are saying, like he has definitely been on drugs for long stretches of his life, on things like lean, and that's like the one that's most publicized. But So all of that is sort of like leading up to like 2015, and in like
And he's like cleaning up his act.
Right, he like disappears a little bit, and in 2015 he like super joins up with Hillsong Church.
Yeah, he becomes like what happens with Tom Cruise when his longtime publicist leaves and his sister becomes his publicist.
Right.
He is the poster child all of a sudden for Scientology.
Right.
And and that's Justin Bieber is their Tom Cruise.
Right. So he joins Hillsong Church, gets baptized by them.
Hot youthful pastors.
And so GQ ran an article about the whole Hillsong Church.
When did they do that?
In December of 2015.
Okay, like when he was like very, because I just came across this Vice article too, which is about like what I learned.
Oh yeah, so they talk about how like he meets with Pastor Carl, who's
Carl
like
Lentz.
the hot pastor of Hillsong Church. He's like young, has a wife, but like basically it's just like a star fucker, but a pastor.
Yeah, he like wears Supreme.
And like Saint Laurent, and
he's like a sneakerhead. He's a hype beast. I think is
that's
the word
the
for
term. So he's that, but also a pastor. And so Justin like decides that he needs to be baptized right then, and like they basically talk about like how they have to like go, like they try to use the pool they usually use at like a hotel, but it's already in use because they hadn't had it like booked for the baptism, and then they try to go somewhere else and they can't get in, and then they end up with like an NFL player who like has a bathtub that's like designed like to his specs basically, so it's like incredibly deep because he's like 7 feet tall, who's a member of Hillsong Church as well. So he like goes to their house
at Kevin Durant.
It was not Kevin Durant. Anyway, he goes to their house at 2 a.m. to get baptized in this man's bathtub. They first go there to get baptized in his pool, but they don't have access to it because it's like too late, so the pool's like closed for the night.
Hipster Christianity.
So anyway, so Justin Bieber is baptized, he's born again, whatever.
Well,
and
he
then
finds Jesus.
But even after this moment where he is like publicly talking about his being saved, then after that is when he has the moment in Oslo where there gets water on the stage and he storms off, and when he like is in the radio interview he's in a radio interview and he just like walks out, probably. And like is in like Twitter fights with Selena Gomez and like just like continues to exhibit the same behavior, but it's like now he has this patina of having been like brought back into the fold,
but then he has to get
Jesus.
back into the fold again, I feel like.
Right, it's like just a continuous cycle of being horrible and being cleaned, for lack of a better term. And obviously I believe that like making changes in your life is a process, and obviously it's not something that just happens overnight. But here's, I guess, like my frustration around Hillsong and around like sort of this Christian idea of being saved, in this sort of like non-denominational way, especially. I
guess they fully describe themselves as Pentecostal.
That's insane. Pentecostal churches terrify me.
And they support Trump.
So I think Hillsong does.
Yeah, this Vice article, sorry. But the organization has mixed messages about LGBTQ people, and its founder is a committed Trump supporter.
So the founder of Hillsong Church, I guess he was the founder, and so he's the grandfather of the current like head of the church, is a convicted pedophile in Australia. He sexually abused a 7-year-old boy, which plays into like the entire church. So in the GQ article that comes up, and he's like, that like everyone is a sinner basically. And like I hope that like, or I believe that like he's been like given forgiveness because like that's like what Jesus does. Anyway, so that's like the background of this church. However, it's also a church who is anti-abortion, anti-gay rights, and like but behind this sheen of like
we're young
cool
and hip.
clothes and like models go here and we all wear these like dumb hats that they look like they are for sale at Free People.
Yeah, or urban.
So I think what is so frustrating for me here is one, the like, I mean, just like the hypocrisy of
These
Christian churches that operate like this will never like not make me furious.
Oh,
it's like, it's just like the backbone of my fury. I think as a person, coming from a religious area, and like not a super religious household, weirdly, but because
you're in that area, it feels like it's...
Well, no, because my family, like, in a lot of ways is incredibly religious, but like I didn't go to church growing up. It's like a very strange thing to like look back on. So I wasn't like actively like involved in it, but it's like you right, like you.
It's like part of the culture. Almost.
Yes,
that's what I'm trying to get at.
Right, yeah. So like you're part of this like Christian culture, even if you aren't going to church. Anyway, so I think that's like my first anger.
Right.
And so like looking at something like Hillsong Church being like popularized by people like Kendall Jenner and the Kardashian, like the whole Kardashian clan and Justin Bieber.
But I don't think that's the regular church, the Kardashians.
I don't.
But they have like, they're chummy with those people.
Right. Anyway, I think two things. One, like Hillsong Church as this sort of star fucking like religious organization, like there's something so revolting about a religious organization that values one congregant over another, which this church like actively does. Yep. And so their I guess excuse for it is that like by joining with celebrities they're getting the like spreading the gospel or spreading the word of Jesus like with these people as the vessels, which I think like it's looking at it from the theological point of view reads to me as like clearly as idolatry being masked under the facade of like
spreading the word,
right, like bringing like
more
doing the
into
work
the fold.
right,
it's not
doing
it's
the
so
work
you
of the
can wear
church
your supreme.
And so I got a little bit into Hillsong Church and like even reading like Christian critiques of Hillsong. So I was reading this website Pen and Pulpit, and they're actually coming from like the sort of probably it's like a right wing critique of Hillsong Church, or like a more conservative, more traditional Christian like view on Hillsong. But even they are seeing this as like I don't know, sort of like satanic in that like the music is like or the whole presentation of the church is like putting a glossy sheen on everything and not actually like reading the Bible or digging into the word or like it. So it's like even though they have these like very regressive values as a church, like
but masquerading as like, oh, we're hip so we look progressive, but we're not.
Exactly. So like I think like from the right wing you're like, oh, this is actually not a like good thing because
they're also showing that like it's not actually doing anything, and two, it's like what you're saying, it's like, oh, you're idolizing some of your whatever they call them,
Right, you're
people
truly
believers,
making like
yeah.
false idols out of these celebrities, and then you have like teens wanting to join your church because they know that Justin
Yeah.
Bieber is a part of your church. Like,
Yeah.
I just like, to me that reads as like filthy.
Well, the whole church is filthy. Like the Vice article I was mentioning mentions that I think it's actually like the dad of the founders, which isn't Carl Lentz, is just like the guy in the States. But the Australian guys, their dad, they acknowledged other cases of
Of
like
sexual abuse?
yeah, sexual assault
Or-
to children. And they were like, I think it was because he was like closeted, and this is how he was dealing with it.
So as I was saying, they're
Yeah, just
horrible
like-
people.
But just that they're
But,
masking
right,
it.
it's
None
this-
of
I
their
mean-
beliefs get.
Right. I mean, that's also like, that's like the Kevin Spacey defense. It's like, oh, I'm coming out now. And it's like, you're coming out as what? Like,
Like predator.
right, a sexual predator who preys on teenage boys.
Yeah. And who happens to be gay? Like,
Right.
okay.
Like, what we're accusing you of is not homosexuality, it's predation.
Yeah.
So, like, feel free to come out as a predator, but, like, I'm not going to fucking celebrate you or, like
oh,
feel,
yes,
like,
welcome to the
kinship with
community.
you as if you're part of the gay community or the LGBTQ community because you, like, happen to be gay. You just happen to be gay, but the other thing is that you are actively preying on
Young men.
on children, or you're a rapist, or you're whatever. Like, Bill Cosby is a rapist
Yeah.
who happens to be heterosexual. But,
Exactly.
like, his thing is that he's a rapist. Like, your thing is that you were a pedophile, not that you were gay.
Exactly.
If you were even gay. Like, that's also just, like, weird projection from your grandchildren because you all clearly hate gay people. Or you
Right.
wouldn't say something like that.
Well, yeah, and their thing is like, their views aren't clear. It's like, well, no, I've got lots of gay friends.
Right. They're like, well, you
But-
can't be in New York, like, in New York City and, like, actively, like, preaching anti-gay.
Exactly.
Or-
So we're not going to touch it. It's very
Right.
much like a housewives approach to these things. Like, oh, I know I shouldn't say these things. So it's
Right.
like, we're all using coded language right now. And we
Right.
know what we're saying, but I'm not flat out saying it. You know,
Right.
it's all coded language with them where it's like, yeah, of course, I've got loads of gay friends and I love them. But it's not something I would want
Right.
for anyone. And you're like, what?
Yeah. That's a good point. It is very housewives. I think, so there's that. And also being a preacher who's wearing Saint Laurent, where's the money coming? Like, where's the money coming from? You know, it's like,
Right.
if the purpose of a church is to,
Humble yourself.
well, humble yourself before God, but also, like, to, like, bring, like, it's, in my mind, should be for, like, towards social justice. So if you're, like, feeding the poor
Right.
or, like, working to
Provide
like,
health care for people.
right. I mean, you look at the Catholic Church and, like, there's obviously horrors upon horrors there,
Right.
but also there are, like,
Yeah, it's
so many, like, city
traditional- yeah.
programs that work
Are
to,
there
like,
to-
be a part of the community
Right.
and offer protection and
Right. And it's like with any large organizations,
And
there's
so, like,
lots of issues.
right. And you can, obviously I'm not here defending the Catholic Church,
No, but you're just saying it's like,
like, I'm sorry, but, like, I can't even tell you, like, Hillsong is not giving me even one thing to be like, oh, they're also doing good work. It's like, no,
No.
you're somehow a pastor who's able to afford clothing that costs thousands of dollars, and
well, what my thing is, I feel like most churches are charitable, like what you're saying with the Catholic Church. In some way, it's either like, oh, we're sending our choir to this, we're doing, what are they doing? What are they doing?
I mean, great question. They're making millions and millions of dollars off of, you know, tithing, and also from like licensing of their music to other churches. They're making huge amounts of money. But what do they have to show for it? Except huge amounts of money and hip pastors wearing all designer clothing and, like, living in mansions in Montclair, New Jersey. It just reminds me of, like, the line from the Bible of, like, it's easier for a camel to walk through, like, or it's easier thread a camel through the eye of a needle than a rich man to get into heaven.
Yeah.
I probably butchered that a little
But
bit,
it's something
but that's the idea. And
but don't worry, they chose to ignore that one, but we're just like
right. And
about.
so, and in this GQ interview, it's like, you know, like obviously like all sins are equal before God. So I'm not saying that being gay is a larger sin than being a liar or something, but it's like, you're going to say that to me as a pastor wearing like all this fucking designer clothing and just like aiding and abetting capitalism. Like,
yeah, and
sorry,
like being
but
on Trump's saying that like, oh, well, Trump rededicated himself to God at 60.
Right. And actually that is, I think,
this is
beyond that, like what my whole point
right
really is, and my frustration is, thank you.
Yeah.
Is that we, especially in the United States, I don't know about the rest of the world if it's the same way, but we basically give men carte blanche to do and say whatever they want as long as
they
at like
dedicated
the
themselves
moment
to God.
that they need to, they can say, oh, I've actually dedicated myself to God now, and so I'm absolved of everything that I did before. We watched it just happen with Donald Trump, who's clearly not a man of God.
No.
Like,
he couldn't tell the difference between a quote from Game of Thrones to the Bible. Like, he couldn't.
I couldn't either. No, I'm kidding.
You know what I mean? Where
right.
it's like these names that are outrageous, and you'd be like, yeah.
Bathsheba. Yeah, that's... Anyway, it's like people like him, people like Michael Lohan, to go back on that train of people who are clearly horrific, like an abusive father.
Right. That
and
it's a quick fix.
Who then goes from being like a true tormentor of his daughter to then saying like, oh, now that I'm saved, like I wish Lindsay could come get saved. Like it'll make her like, it'll fix everything. She just needs to like come live with me and like live this lifestyle. And it's like, Michael Lohan, you are responsible for so much of this.
Right.
And now you're not taking responsibility, but placing blame on your daughter.
It's totally the quick, like I'm absolved of my things. So it's like, with what you're saying, is like we never even have to go down that road.
Right.
I don't have to answer for any of that because that was me before I found Jesus.
Right.
And not like, it's not like a sort of AA type thing, even though that's like deeply rooted in Christianity of being like, oh, I have these things that I really have to work through. It's like, no,
right.
oh, I'm all good. Woo, woo.
Right. And also, I mean, even with AA though, there's like, in like a 12-step process, there are moments where you have to go and ask for forgiveness for the things that you did.
That's what I'm saying. It's like different in that.
Right. No. But that's like,
because
that's truly like, the thing. It's just like I think you want so much more than to hear that Justin Bieber was baptized. It's like, just because he was baptized doesn't mean that monkey's life hasn't been ruined.
Or that he's like, oh, wow, like, these are the awful things I've done, so, like, I'm going to go and be, like, a better like, I'm going to try and make up for that stuff.
Right. Justin Bieber and Donald Trump, honestly, are sort of one and the same here in that way of, like, well, also just that white evangelical Christians are responsible for all of the horrors since the 1980s in a lot of ways. And also being a white evangelical Christian at this point as a voting bloc means that you just support white supremacy. It has nothing to do with Christianity or the teachings of Jesus. Because if you cared at all about that, you wouldn't be voting for a man like Donald Trump. But right. So, I'm forgiven because I suddenly am Christian. It's like, bitch, I ain't forgot. Just because you think you're forgiven. Like, Jesus might forgive you, but I don't. Because you have to ask for forgiveness and then show that you are deserving of it.
Right.
And I really do think also that this is incredibly patriarchal, not only just because the churches that allow and give this kind of forgiveness don't allow for women. Like, they don't allow for female pastors often.
It's this because this serves as a get out of jail free card in America for white men,
right, who
need it's a rebranding, which is like the antithesis of like what a religion should be. Like, oh, I need a rebranding, so I'm just gonna like say I'm doing this. It just seems like antithetical to like what you were saying earlier is like what a religion should be.
Well, right. I mean, in my mind, like both religion and forgiveness or like self-betterment are processes. They're not quick. Like there's not a quick fix for it. Like me talking earlier about like I'm having like
microdose.
Right, microdosing, but like me having an issue with like knowing that my tone when I'm frustrated can get like sound more confrontational, and then like my words won't be confrontational, but my tone will be like very blunt. And so it's like, oh, I have to work on that, and that's not nothing, but it's also like compared to what we're talking about, like a very minor thing, but it's still like there's no quick fix for that.
No.
I mean, there's like apologizing for it, but it's also like if you're actually fixing something, you have to be like,
willing
either why am I frustrated? How can I remove that frustration? Or how can I change something about myself? But also like in the future, how can I not, like when I'm feeling this way,
like almost
use this tone of voice?
Well, and like how it affects other people is also you're like, oh, that person took it, like it hurt them.
Right.
You know?
And like even if they're the source of your frustration, it's still like, if you want to talk about why they're frustrating you, that's one thing, and you're like actually like dealing with the issue or confronting it.
Right.
But otherwise you're just like lashing out, but not even giving the other person like the ability to understand you.
Right.
Or, to, like,
or they don't even know
point with you, or to even
why.
know
they're like,
what's
oh,
happening.
I didn't realize.
It just feels like
right.
wrong.
But it's not. There's no place for them to move forward. Also, where you're like, they're just like, wow, Jackson was being a bitch, instead of being like, oh, I didn't realize that sometimes my tone affects Jackson. That, you know, just
right.
Everyone better understanding. I think too, to your larger point, is that this just like Justin Bieber does represent this sort of voting block, almost with people that are like your family, where you didn't necessarily go to a church, but you have this like, well, we're, you know, it's like, that's why we believe that. And it's like, well, no, you don't believe that because you don't go to church, and you don't, or it's like people, a lot of these Pentecostal churches, it's just propaganda, and they're not actually using the Bible or actually like studying the teachings. Because like if it was, like everyone would be like, that is in those churches would be like literally giving up all their money to help people. Yeah. You know? And it's just this reason to actually like this total carte blanche, pulling it all together, that you can just be a horrible person and blame it on your religion and just be like, well, like I don't support that because of my religion. It's not like you personally, it's just my religion.
So yeah, in this article with
GQ, right?
With GQ, it's written by Taffy Brodesser-Ackner, who grew up in an Orthodox Jewish household.
Which I think is like obviously like so incredibly smart to, like obviously like her unique perspective, but it's truly fascinating to have like that person go into this other sort of
where it wouldn't be interesting if you sent me into it.
Yeah, well,
in the same way,
find in
a different thread, but like it's a point of view that not a lot of people would have, or not a lot of people, but like anyway, it's just an interesting combination with also a great writer, not just that she's like grew up Orthodox Jewish, but also
that's
has
her
like
thing. That's the only reason they hired her.
So she's talking about with Pastor Carl about really his stance on abortion and gay marriage, and she says Pastor Carl doesn't like that he's considered a bigot simply because he doesn't share the views you tend to find in blue state big cities, that you can be gay, you can abort your fetus, you can do whatever you'd like with your body, really. He's happy to discuss about it, but he doesn't like being challenged on this by people who don't believe in the God of the Bible, because how could they possibly understand why he's reached those conclusions when you're not starting from the same place?
Wow.
Which is crazy. So she digs back into this later in the article and talks a bit about how she is like finding herself like she likes Carl as a person despite how horrific she finds his views.
Right.
And she like enjoys the service at Hillsong even though she thinks it's
scary and problematic and
but like enjoys like the music and like the show of it all.
Theatrical.
Right. Anyway, so she talks about how she like decides not to go back And like maybe that's the devil whispering in her ear. And she says, then again, you shouldn't always ignore the devil. Sometimes the devil has valid things to say. What if the devil whispers in your ear and reminds you that most of the current Christian doctrine was decided not by Jesus, but at the Council of Nicaea, or Nicaea? Nicaea, thank you. Mm-hmm. I can't read. Almost 300 years after Christ's death. Or the devil might point out that if Christ died, so we didn't have to submit to Levitical law, meaning that we can shave our heads, we can have tattoos, then maybe that could extend to things that are truly important to a person's essential happiness and ability to survive in this terrible, lonely world. The devil might suggest that if you can back down from your doctrine of biblical inerrancy in order to let women pastor at Hillsong, because the Bible does clearly say that women shouldn't, then surely you could blur your eyes and see that Jesus never actually said anything about gays or abortion. So...
Or that Jesus didn't write the Bible and it was all, there was an editor.
And then she says, and if you still thought you had a leg to stand on here, the devil might even offer to introduce you to some of the wives of cured homosexuals and ask you to ask them how they're doing, if their marriages feel authentic, if their husbands aren't suicidal. And if the devil will whisper in your ear and tell you to keep your fucking laws off my fucking body, and yes, the devil is the devil, but that doesn't mean that she's wrong. Anyway, the point here, and I think what's so powerful and interesting, is that this is someone who comes from a religious practice.
Right.
And so, like, it's really a rejection of the idea that you can't argue with me because I know it from the Bible, because it's an interpretation. Anyway, I don't want to go, like, deep on biblical interpretation, but I do think that these people are evil. I think Hillsong Church is an agent of true terror. And Justin Bieber is their Trojan horse.
He doesn't realize it.
I mean...
I truly think he thinks he's there for the right reasons, but he's not.
He's being used.
He's being manipulated.
And they're, like, actively saying they're using him. Anyway, he's being used. They're a as far as I can tell, charitable organization,
right,
who is tax-free, and
so they can make more money,
using that to buy their pastors fancy clothes and have them talk shit on women who get an abortion, or
gays,
like, or kick out a leader in their choir. The leader of their choir, they found out was gay in a relationship with a man, and like took away his leadership position. So I think at the end of the day, Hillsong Church can just go straight to hell where it belongs, because it's truly an agent of hell. And Justin Bieber, it's like, I obviously, like, don't harbor ill will towards him necessarily, but I don't see any of this ending well for him.
Oh, it won't.
Right. And
because they're just being like, yeah, dude, Jesus forgives you, man.
Right.
And he's like,
they probably literally said it in that exact, like, those were the words.
Totally.
That's not paraphrasing, because there's, like, quotes in there of him calling people like, hey, bro, hey, man, hey, dude, like, really got to get this kid baptized.
Well,
it's C.
A note to hit on that I think is, like, kind of illuminates how this is very problematic is entering a discussion with someone is usually, or like a debate, is to find common ground and to, like, I mean, not necessarily every debate is to find common ground, but to engage with the other person to try and see their side. I mean, usually debate maybe isn't the best, but having some sort of discourse, like, between Taffy and Carl,
right? It's
to be like, I want to understand you more. But when someone's shutting it off, which is very much what's happening in our political climate, of being like, oh, we can't, because we're not come from the same place. It's like, that's exactly why we need to have this conversation.
Right. Yeah.
Because, like, how can we actually live together if you're not willing to validate me or even hear me out? Or
Right. Or if the assumption is that we can't find an agreement.
Right.
Like, we're so separated that we
Which
couldn't possibly agree.
seems the antithesis to Christianity. Like, all of it does.
So, yeah.
So Justin Bieber.
Modern Christianity is a patriarchal tool for absolving people of horrible actions.
It's a tool. It's always been a tool. I think that note that she's like, or that most of these things were like decided 300 years when it was like, oh, we're powerful institutions.
Right.
We're going to get all a bunch of men together and make these laws to control everyone else who isn't us.
So you can believe that Jesus is love, and like there are ways to conceive of a God that is not this, but Hillsong Church is not that.
Right.
If Hillsong Church thinks that it's rooted in biblical teachings, but like is coming to the conclusions that they are, they're not rooted in biblical teachings.
They better come cracked. I'm hoping that maybe Miss Rebecca Potts will listen to this and give us some notes.
I hope so. So shout out to my progressive Christians, my progressive Catholics.
Yeah.
I know that you exist, are out there, and are doing.
Oh yeah, Leah Michaels. I'm excited to hear her comments.
Amazing work. But I think like cultural Christianity also
needs to go F itself.
Hard to grow up around, and I'd like to do anything I can to make sure fewer kids have to.
I like that. That's what you're going to work on this week. Me too.
Justin, may
what
you,
do you mean?
Find something.
Maybe go to AA or Narcotics Anonymous. Like, go to...
Yeah, I don't know. That was rougher than I expected.
Yeah.
I'm feeling weird, so...
It could be the rosé coffee combo.
Could
but
be.
It did go somewhere that I wasn't expecting. Like, I thought... I don't know. But I'm happy that we went down this path because I think it illuminates... It's one of these things, like most of pop culture, that seems so inconsequential. Like, I don't care if Justin goes to whatever church. Like, I just like his music. It's like, well, he's being used as this vessel, and this church is actually, like, literally on the board of Trump's, like, whatever they have, like, their religious boards or teams that help them morally judge things, which...
And don't forget that their music is played in churches across the world that are not even...
Pentecostal
related to Hillsong Church. So you might be receiving their message even if you don't intend to. So, you know, keep a sharp ear.
Keep a sharp ear. Know the names of these people.
Yeah, and I guess don't think of things as weightless or inconsequential.
Yeah, that's like beautiful, and I'm not alarmist, but no, but it was saying like it's something like beautiful and heavy with that. You know, it's like kind of scary, like end times.
Yeah. But maybe we are.
But I think I agree with you.
In that moment, so rate, review, subscribe, read a good summer book. Let us know what you're reading. I'm reading The Sparsfield Affair by Alan Hollinghurst right now.
Ooh.
It is fun. It's a multi-generational, like, gay British story, which is my favorite kind of story. Like a novel that just characters, one who is, you know, not from an important British family, and one who is.
Oh.
Always love that.
That's great.
So
I'm reading.
It's The Curse of Brideshead Revisited on my life.
Oh.
Yeah, too formative for me.
I'm currently reading a book that I've been reading slowly. I need to get back better about actually reading, just not articles. It's called Cinderella's Big Score. Courtney Bush and I are both reading it. She got it for me for my birthday, and it's about women in punk.
Ooh.
And it's like, I wouldn't necessarily say it's an oral history, but it might be described as such. I don't know, but it's really interesting.
Cool.
Yeah, it's cool and inspiring. Well,
I hope y'all are enjoying your summers, and if you do have anyone you'd like to discuss,
right,
send us a voice note, send us a comment, and we can dig into it from there.
Right. And our email address is weforgiveyoupodcast@gmail.com, where you can send a voice memo. You can send anything you want shared on air. If you have fan artwork,
we will share it on our Instagram. As always, a huge thank you to Karen Lee for our episodic artwork.
And Sarah Falkman
for our logo design, and to V Johnson for his enthusiasm about pressing that press, and
we need
for
that
our
theme song.
Music.
We need that.
We need a little musical note for press that press. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye. We